While I've been to Spain and I can vouch for the quality of all of their food and drink options, I've never been to Italy. I can only assume that their beverages are as wonderful as Spain's are, including their coffee. And I'm going somewhere with this because what I always do at the top of a podcast is to promote a brand that you can't get in Europe, even though you Europeans will wish you could. And that brand is Sparkplug Coffee. Sparkplug offers Americans and we Canadians the freshest, fairly traded, premium Arabica beans that you can find in the Great White North. Sparkplug delivers their stuff within a week to people who make their residence in the US or Canada. Canadians even get free shipping. What you'll be able to order off their menu is any number of blends and roasts. Blends, roasts. They rotate their seasonal blends, so go ahead and get something that suits the spring. They also have half calf and decaf, for those who don't dig on being jammed to the hairline with caffeine. And we urge you to take out a membership in the Autopilot Coffee Club. You'll get the chance to enjoy perks and deals that non-members won't, and you'll save money on every single order. You can pause or cancel if and when you might need to, plus you can customize to get your orders when it suits your life and your desires. This, my amiches, is not a stifling coffee of the month club. I probably butchered that amiches thing. I believe that's friend in Italian. The avenue to go down in your browser is sparkplug.coffee/HYES. That HYES promo code is what you need to put into the right box to save 20% off your next order. One-time savings. Our discount code, Ciao Bellas, is the key to keeping some euros in your pocket. Now allow me to start the monologue about our first ever Sophia Loren film, An Azione. Have you ever seen? Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Hello, people who like motion pictures, and thank you very much for downloading or streaming, or somehow stumbling across the 590th posting on this channel we call Have You Ever Seen? We look back at movie classics every Monday, and every other Friday, like today, and we spoil the flick of the day from its beginning to its ending. Since this is a Friday, you'll only be hearing one voice in your ears, and that voice belongs to Ryan Ellis. My wife Bev never talks to you guys on Fridays, plus she's still recovering from the heel surgery she had last month. Although, here's some news. We're only 3 days away from Bev coming back to the podcast. She'll be sitting across from me on May 20th. She'll end up missing 3 Mondays, but her recovery from that heel surgery is far enough along that she can get back to our normal watch and discuss schedule. Before I can indulge in some tomfoolery or detail the plot in sequential order, or even go off on some tangents, as I like to do, I need to set up the credentials of the film in question. So Vittorio De Sica's Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow was released in late December 1963, but North America got it on St. Paddy's Day in 1964, making this a 60-year-old movie. In this part of the world, at least. It's always tricky to get full confirmation about how well a movie from this long ago did at the box office, especially when it's an international film like this. But this Italian extravaganza seems to have been successful with the ticket-buying public. But what do those who talk about film for a living think of it? Well, there are only 9 reviews posted on Rotten Tomatoes, but the critics are at 78% for YT&T, with an average of 7.2 out of 10. So that means, of course, 7 out of 9 liked it. 80% of audiences like it as well. One of the reasons I chose this as my Sophia Loren movie is because it won the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film in 1965. Thought about doing Marriage Italian Style, I think it's called. I believe it's the same 3 people involved, director and the 2 stars. But this won that Oscar, and you know I like Oscars. Something I learned just recently is that the award officially goes to the country of Italy, not so much to the director, in this case Vittorio De Sica, even though the director of the foreign language, or international feature as they call it now, tends to be the one who accepts and gives a speech. By the way, I said 65 a minute ago. Of course, I meant that the award went in 65. I try to avoid that. Whenever the award actually was given out, I go by the year the movie came out, because that can be this whole thing is confusing when the awards are months after a movie came out. But a 64 release, one in 65. Speaking of De Sica directing this, and Marcello, I think it's Marcello Mastroianni starring in it, those are a couple other reasons to spend time talking about it, not just Loren being in this. They're 2 very talented men who've only been talked about on this channel once each before. As for Sophia, this is number 1 on Have You Ever Seen? But as for that Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film, 2 competitors in that category were The Umbrellas of Cherbourg and Woman in the Dunes. I like this movie just fine, so I'm not going to rain fire on it for winning that award, but Umbrellas is pretty beloved, although maybe it's gained in esteem over the decades and wasn't so acclaimed then. As for Woman in the Dunes, that's damn good too. I just saw it for the first time a few weeks ago. In any case, the film made by De Sica and his sexy stars beat out both of those and took it home for Italy. The irony about this being an Italian film and going on to win an Oscar is that I see that it was dubbed when it came over here. So Best Foreign Language Film, air quotes, but only sort of. There are some movies I prefer with the English dub, by the way, even if they weren't made that way. That's how I saw Spirited Away the first time back in 2002, and I have checked out the Japanese soundtrack at least once, and it's fine, but I know it best in English and just prefer it that way. That's also how I saw The Boy and the Heron a few months ago. That won Best Animated Feature back in March, I guess it was. Although I didn't realize it was dubbed into English until after the movie had started, which might explain why there were only 2 other people in the theater with me. Most people would rather hear the original Japanese voices, I guess. I planned to, but didn't look closely enough at the listing that day. Just like when I saw Godzilla -1, I didn't notice it was in black and white, which was fine. It looked cool, but I wasn't supposed to see it that way. I didn't know. It was just the last chance I had to see it before it went away. Anyway, I just found that amusing that the best foreign language film probably did get screened over here in the original Italian in some places, but in others, nope, English. Since we're on this language kick right now, I should apologize before I start the plot breakdown for what will no doubt be at least a little butchering of these names. Fortunately, the 2 stars and the director are very famous people, and I think I've got the pronunciation of their names right, unless it's Marcello and not Marcello. But okay, let's get to the story of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, which is an anthology that's broken up into 3 segments. Sophia Loren and Marcello Mastroianni, who share a title card in the opening credits, are in all 3 parts, and they're the only actors who are. The 2 dreamboats always play lovers. In the first bit, they're a married couple with more than a volleyball team's worth of children, plus 1. I said more than, yeah, they got 7 kids. And in all 3 segments, they're very horny for each other. And who can blame them? While she's dominant and he plays a bit of a loser each time, he was a handsome man, and she's simply one of the sexiest women who's ever lived, on screen or off. So the first part, 1954, and part 1 is set in the working class area of Naples. She plays Adelina in this yesterday sequence, and he's Carmine. A guy comes to their house to repossess a walnut table. She's at work, so he has to deal with all this. Now, I was taking notes like I always do, and I thought I saw in the subtitles that they hadn't paid for the table, so that's why this guy was coming to take it back. But Wikipedia's plot description says she's being fined for selling cigarettes on the black market, and repossessing their furniture is the punishment. I don't know. Either way, she's in trouble. And it should be both of them, but it's just her. I guess they owe the equivalent of about $700 American in today's money, which doesn't sound like that much money, but for poor people, even a $100 fine is probably too much to bear, then or now. This is the kind of movie where the entire neighborhood is fascinated by this mini-drama, and they hover behind the guy, who quickly leaves when he finds no table in the house, or almost anything else. And that's because the neighbors have stashed the Zebrades furniture in their own houses, which they bring back to Carmine as soon as the truck pulls away. Although a lawyer sees all this merriment and tells Carmine he's in big trouble for the furniture fraud, the Fernie fraud. Carmine just blames it all on his wife, since she's the breadwinner and everything is in her name. Plus, she's the mother of children. Well, she will be. Adelina is trying to sell those cigarettes in the town square when the family friend Pasquale tells her all about the craziness going on back home. She's about to leave with him, but De Sica gives us a nice smile moment, not really a laugh out loud, but a good smile, when a customer shows up right then, looking to buy some smokes. So she rushes back to sell him some. Her husband can wait. Business calls. Duty calls. Adelina goes home and bursts in, giving the lawyer what for, but she had him at, "You're pregnant," which she is. So he can't, won't, and doesn't arrest her. That's a law over there, or was, I guess. I don't think it is here. You can't be locked up if you're pregnant or if the new kid is less than 6 months old. Everyone else seems surprised by the news that she's with child, but wasn't it obvious? Sophia Loren is not a thin rail of a woman, which is part of what makes her so sexy, but she clearly had a baby in there. Or she had a very big lunch. The local kids march in lockstep saying, she's expecting, as they stroll on down the dock to tell a fisherman. The Zebrades are very popular people in this town. Everyone cares about everything they do. We get a little backstory of Adelina and Carmine while they're talking with friends over a meal. But what I loved so much was the detail that there's fruit everywhere in their place. They have a pretty small place, fruit everywhere. They have bananas, that's a huge part of it, but they also have lemons and maybe they're papayas. I'm not really sure. I don't know much about those kinds of fruit. I'm a grapes guy, strawberry guy. Anyway, more of that stuff than you've ever seen anywhere outside of a fruit stand. Is this stuff on the black market too, just like the cigarettes? Illegal fruiting might need to be added to their list of crimes. Adelina has the baby at Christmas time, but come the spring, the cops come calling. She's going to be arrested now that the kid is a few months old, I guess 6 months old. But these prolific lovers got to bumping again as soon as they could, and she's preggers again. The law says the cops can't arrest her, so they go away. I enjoyed the scene where everybody in the square except Adelina bolt when they hear that the fuzz are coming. I guess all these people, all these women are selling stolen goods out in the open, so they need to get out of Dodge. She barely reacts, though. She doesn't sprint away like they do, because she has a doctor's note that says she's got one in her lovely, lovely oven. Immunity is a sweet thing, perhaps the sweetest thing. Oh, the sweetest thing. The cops come for her again a few months later, but she has another doctor's note because she's with child again. Time passes, and they end up with 7 kids. They average one new baby per year, I guess, so let's do the math. 7 or even 8 years have passed since the film started. So I guess now we're basically contemporary. If that's 8 or so years since 1954 and the movie was made in 62 or 63, here you go. I'm good at math sometimes, aren't I? Now I wonder, how much money can you make selling black market cigarettes for all those years so you can feed and house 2 adults and 7 kids? One day, Pasquale comes over to help feed this rabble while Carmine is off enjoying some alone time. I love seeing the great big wrought iron bed during this scene, which is about 10 feet from the dining room table. This is basically a bachelor apartment, so the bed has to go somewhere. But with these 2 hot people doing it all the time, that thing must never stop rocking, and the kids are right there beside them in their own little beds. Adelina wears a t-shirt in the next scene that belongs in the Louvre. Maybe it's a blouse, but t-shirt, whatever. This woman doesn't care for bras, and I think it's cold in that street too. Wowzers. While a dude blesses their bed and wishes for her womb to be fruitful, because it's been failing so badly so far, Carmine is at his mother's, unable to get some rest because workers are being noisy right next door. I swear by my white noise machine, and this is why. I've slept through our neighbors having loud sex and also a giant argument that Bev told me about later. Didn't hear a thing. White noise machine, man. Get one. Although these people probably couldn't afford one. And did they even have electricity in that little place? Anyway, Carmine isn't just frazzled because he's tired, but because life with so many kids is, understandably, hard as hell. Harder for her, surely, but maybe he's just a baby who never grew up, and now he has to take care of other babies. We see in this next scene that all the kids sleep only about 2 feet from the marital bed in the Sobrati's bachelor apartment. Obviously, Carmine doesn't want even more kids, but Sophia looks bloody incredible one night, wearing a fantastic black nightgown. She crawls on the bed and lilts his name. Carmine. His brain says, I can't, but his nethers say, how can I not? And you can't blame him. Even after all these kids coming out of her body every year, look at her. That, by the way, is a science fiction element of this story. That anyone could have that many babies and still look like this. But yeah, they need to keep creating kids so she can stay out of the hoosegow, and he knows his stud services are his biggest contribution to this family. I guess he never got his own job in all these years. Of course, she's the breadwinner, so I guess he's the house husband who has to watch the kids throughout the day. There are worse jobs to have. Maybe not for him. He seems like he doesn't want to do this anymore. They go to see the doctor, who suggests he stifle the urge, but they say in unison that they want another child, and they're worried that something is wrong with him, since she's very unpregnant at the moment. Since the doc doesn't get why they need to keep pumping out progeny, he recommends they cool it for a while because he can really see how run down Carmine is. Have another baby next year instead. And Mastroianni really does look whipped, even though Loren doesn't, because the father can. The mother doesn't have time for that kind of weakness when she has so many little whiners counting on her. Carmine isn't coming through for her, so since Pasquale made a pass at her in a previous scene, she calls his bluff and suggests he prove what he's made of. Somebody has to help her out in the baby department. And I don't know if she knows this, but Carmine did tell his mother earlier that he'd kill her if she ever stepped out on him. But I guess times are desperate. If her husband's swimmers aren't cutting the inseminating mustard, then how about the next man in line? But once he grabs a boob and the romancing starts, she immediately puts a stop to it, and regrets even suggesting this in the first place. She just wants her Carmine. So she has no choice but to finally submit to the authorities, taking the latest baby and I guess the next youngest, Nunziata, with her to the lady jail. There are many other women and many other babies there. Most of them have been locked up for fairly minor offenses. There's obviously a comment here that they're all stuck behind bars even though they have kids to raise. If the breadwinner had been Carmine and he was the wanted man, would they just let the whole thing slide? I pretty much guarantee they would. Carmine and the locals gather to rally up as much change as they can to pay the money they owe, but they're still short. Okay, maybe they've been saving for years, but otherwise, they only thought of doing this now, 7 or 8 years after they first tried to arrest her? One night, Carmine goes to the prison to sing to his beloved. Prison has been good to her because she still looks marvelous, wearing white this time. Doesn't matter what the color is on this woman, she looks perfect. Of course, it's obvious we're very far from this being a realistic movie because even this goddess couldn't look this good when she's so busy having and raising all these tykes. And jail wouldn't allow you to look this glamorous, I don't think. Although I guess she has time to take care of herself now. Being in jail offers you time to rest. That and pump iron. Well, the townsfolk did collect enough money, but that lawyer who was against them before wants her to be pardoned. He's insistent about that, in fact. During a jail visit, Carmine reveals to his wife that a man has needs, but she's cheesed off that now he wants to bone. Had he been able to get the job done a while back, she'd still be free. Although how long could they keep doing that? She can't have babies until she dies. But then she is granted a pardon. I didn't really get why. On the day she'll be let out, Carmine and the other 5 kids get a ride from a friend. It's a charming beat when Carmine tells the press who interview him while they're waiting for her to come out that the kids can only think about their mother coming home, but the kids pipe up that they're tired and hungry and need to pee. But then, she was there. The lawyer leads Adelina and the two girls she took with her out of jail, and everyone is gloriously happy. The Zabrati family gets a hero's welcome when they arrive back home. Of course they would. Everyone cares about these people so much. I thought this first sequence of the film would be over at this point, but the button is that some lady friends come calling, wondering if Adelina is going to want her spot on the cigarette line back. But she needs a little family time, and the kids jump on the bed and smother her with love and kisses the way our foster dog Leona does to us. And I presume Carmine and Adelina don't do it prolifically anymore to have another kid, now that they don't need to do that anymore. Condoms, people. I know you're Catholic, but I think God and the Pope will understand when you already have enough children to make up 78% of a baseball team. And that was part one. Pretty fun. De Sica has a high shot slowly panning over the buildings to segue us to the Anna sequence. This entire film is just shy of 2 hours, but the Adelina part took up about 52 minutes, so clearly we'll get less character development in the other two parts. Not that we got a lot of that in the first one either. But yes, this second sequence is only about 20 minutes long. Anyway, we're off to Milan, and Anna is driving around, thumbing her nose at the riffraff on the streets on a Sunday morning. She talks to herself. She is really rich, though. Well, her husband is. So I guess it's expected that she would scorn the very person this same actress just played in part one. Is that ironic, Alanis Morissette? Don't you think? We don't see Loren's face for a while here as she talks to herself about this and that until she picks up Mastroianni. He's playing her beloved Renzo this time. The first face shot we get of Sophia in part two has her looking really glamorous but wearing a lot of makeup. Gotta tell you, I prefer the way she looked in part one. Bev and I just finished watching the 2 seasons of Euphoria, which is a good show, ridiculous that it might be, but it's well acted and well made. The thing we couldn't help noticing, especially me, was how tacky the makeup is, especially on the Maddie actress. She doesn't cake that crap on during a scene at a funeral, and I said to Bev that the girl is actually quite lovely when she looks like that. So what I'm saying is, when you're already pretty, like she is, and obviously Sophia Loren is, why disguise it? Anyway, anti-makeup rant over, and I probably just made some enemies. Renzo isn't Anna's husband, by the way. She's having an affair, and he's her lover. She tells him she feels alive when she's in his arms. She isn't helping her cause not to seem like an entitled douche, though, because she keeps banging into other cars with her husband's Rolls Royce. She biffs the bumpers at stoplights is what I mean. She's not sideswiping people, just banging into them. And those cars could take it, these big steel contraptions in the, I don't know how old this car was, but anyway, pretty careless driving. Although she does nearly run over a guy who's standing beside a car that's pulled over on the side of the road. He's mad about it, but he doesn't even realize that she could barely be bothered to swerve out of the way and not cream the poor man. Despite all the wealth and the jewels and the car and the clothes, Anna only feels emptiness, profound emptiness. As long as it's profound. Although she's not feeling too empty at the moment, because once Renzo has taken over the driving, she cuddles up close to him. They stop the car by a lake and, well, Loren and Mastroianni are as horny in this segment as they were in the first one, because they look like they're about to at least do some passionate necking. But some catcalling workers who are up on a telephone pole spoil the mood. Working class people ruin everything. She wants to go to Naples, but obviously not the working class region we just saw for nearly an hour. This Sophia would sneer at that Sophia. She fantasizes about them getting a room and having a glorious time in bed, which distracts him from being a safe driver. He nearly runs over a kid who's standing in the road and his swerve ends up crashing the car. The front end is banged up and the front left tire is smoking, which causes her to turn on him pretty quick. She's not so soft-spoken and wistful now. She's mad that he crashed her beloved automobile, and he quite understandably gets cheesed about how she's talking to him at this point, so he not so understandably responds to that by sulking over on the other side of the road. An old man in a sports car screeches to a halt when he sees that this goddess needs some help, and she didn't use her thumb. The guy says the damage can be easily fixed. You just need a better driver to handle this fine piece of automotive beauty. He jacks up the tire for a minute, then realizes he's not qualified to fix this thing and they'll need a mechanic. So he drives off with Anna, leaving Renzo to watch the car and wait for the mechanic to show up. That boy who was standing in the road continues to hang around and offer some flowers to Renzo, who pays for some posies. I know you only paid up to help the kid out and to get him out of your face, but look, man, you have to know your lady wouldn't want these mediocre flowers. But that's it for part 2, as Renzo leaves the car by the side of the road and walks off, tossing the flowers into the ditch as he goes and smiling as he does it. This last scene implies he's done with the lady who valued the car over him. So we're on to part 3, the Mara section of the film, which is set in Rome and will take up the last 45 minutes. So this is tomorrow, and that was a pretty depressing today after a lot of fun in yesterday. And today was also a bit pointless. A rich woman who's cheating on her husband turns out to be a disloyal jerk after he accidentally cracks up her car. How creative. Anyway, the first thing we see of Mara is her leg when it comes to the door of her balcony. She puts flowers around the balcony in various places while wearing an outfit that looks like a strong wind might rip it right off of her. Come on, strong wind. This whole scene is more Louvre material. Anyway, the girl of infinite beauty, according to a gentleman caller, is a prostitute who, in a sign of our current era of employment, gets to work from home. The gentleman caller is Mastroianni, this time playing Augusto Rusconi. He's the one with money this time, not her, although she's doing pretty well. This is a nice place. Anyway, his dad specifically is the one who's rich. Augusto is under his thumb, but Marcello is also big and loud and a little flighty in this last part of the movie. I'm guessing, fail son. He wouldn't have any money, he wouldn't have anything at all, other than his looks, if his dad wasn't rich. That night, Mara spends time chatting with her neighbor across the way, who watched her put out those flowers earlier. Umberto, who's studying to be a priest, is spending time with his grandparents. He won't accept a cigarette from Anna because the seminary doesn't let them puff. After she says she likes the color black, and he's wearing that, of course, and that she likes to wear it up top and underneath, he has a look that says, "Don't tell me that." It would be pure torture for a kid who isn't permitted to be with any woman to have to think of this one in her bra and panties. And she seems to get that, so she quickly changes the subject. I like that moment on Loren's face. It's a nice moment of understanding that, without meaning to, she got a little body, and she wasn't trying to embarrass him or make him uncomfortable. She's a sensitive person. Oh, and her brown eyes in this scene? Wow! Umberto can't touch her in the way many men have paid to touch her, but he will stroke a cat she picks up and cuddles. I bet that's an intentional metaphor, euphemism, whatever. That is until their hands make contact and he pulls away, terrified he'll fall for her if he touches her any more than that, I guess. Grandma comes out and ruins the vibe by being a judgmental shrew. She doesn't want Umberto anywhere near this hussy, who rightfully takes offense to what the old lady says. Tina Pica plays the grandmother, and she really sells her disgust well in this scene. Pica worked for nearly 50 years, and this was in fact her last movie. She's pretty effective in this. Anyway, she threatens to tell Mara's landlord about her chosen profession, which I believe Mara said to the kid was a nail technician, and that could get her kicked out. Augusto comes back to Mara's, and she is too upset to put up with his nonsense, even when he pretends to act the way she did in that first scene. When she stuck her leg out through the door, he's doing it now with pants and shoes and everything on. His leg is fine, but it's not her leg. Anyway, her disinterest in humoring him causes him to leave in a huff. Just like the Part 2 version of Mastroianni did after the car crash, he sulks outside. But he comes back the next day on bended knee, just wanting to make up, and to get it on. Let's get it on. Sophia wears a beautiful blue dress in this scene, which she starts to unbutton, but he wants to do it for her. Dude, just let her do it. When small buttons and complicated hooks are involved, most of us guys aren't good at dealing with that, especially if you're excited and you want the clothes off quickly, so just let her do it. Mara catches sight of Umberto, who's not wearing a black cassock today. He's in a normal suit. He grins big at her and they wave, but trouble is only starting to brew, because Grandma has come to the door. Mara doesn't want to let her in, but when Granny starts crying out in the hall, she relents. Apparently Mara has ruined their family that one night, that one conversation, because Umberto wants a vacation from his vocation. He's lost interest in the seminary over a woman. A woman! Little Batman callback. So Mara makes a deal with Gran. If she can convince Umberto to go back to the seminary, then she'll swear off turning tricks for a solid week. She'll be sacrificing 200,000 lira, but she's a saint after all, according to the kid. She's a saint. Okay, this is a nice gesture and all, but shouldn't she get something out of the deal? I'll talk to your grandson, and then I'll punish myself, not be rewarded for it by you if I succeed. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, Augusto is waiting in the bedroom through all this, staring at the tabby cat Mara had picked up while talking to Umberto, and the cat stares back, as cats like to do. But things seem to be working out with the two women in the other room because the one who lays down with men for money charms the old geezer into calming right down. I guess if your job is studying human moves, to quote Paul Newman in Color of Money, then you can talk almost anyone into almost anything, including making nice with the lady who hated her guts not 10 minutes ago. Umberto shows up when Mara is shopping in a religious store. There are religious statues and things everywhere. He's got stars in his eyes for the hottie, but she makes the very good point that she's almost old enough to be his mother. That doesn't dissuade him, but her aggressively trying to convince him to be a priest in training again sends him away in disappointment. He also doesn't know she's a pro, but still, young man, you think you belong with her? You're a little bit crazy, a little bit full of yourself. So Granny's back to being distraught, telling Mara that now the kid wants to join the Foreign Legion. Mara doubles down on this pro-religion attitude in this segment because she tells everyone that she'd be a nun if she could do it over again, which I really don't believe for a microsecond. That declaration doesn't help anything, although it does set up for the very last scene. Her talking about being a nun if she could do it again. We'll get to that in a second. The kid and his grandfather struggle over the kid's suitcase because Umberto really wants to leave, and I guess doing that some other time is impossible. Mara gets her man, it's gotta be right now. Mara gets her man Rusconi to hustle over there and wrestle the case away. Considering how much Gran hated Mara and Augusto a day or two ago, they're all fast friends now. In the end, Umberto caves and decides to go back to the seminary after all. Guys, if he doesn't want to do this badly, then he's not going to be good at it. Stop forcing this. Umberto was back in his cassock, and the pro and her dopey John watch him and his grandparents get on a bus. They celebrate their good deed, quote-unquote. I'd say that anyone becoming a priest is very arguably a good thing. Augusto thinks everything can go back to the way it was, so he asks her to strip. And she starts to, as he watches from the bed like he's a little boy. He's curled up with his knees under his chin as if he's a 10-year-old watching cartoons. Plus he hoots and hollers as she removes more and more clothing. Dude, you've slept with her before. This is a sexy scene for sure, but you have sampled these goods. Although I guess it's sweet that he's this worked up about a woman he's already been with so many times. The fire continues to rage in him. The scene, by the way, is the poster shot, particularly the part where she takes off her stockings and shows off her remarkable thigh. This might be a European film, but I didn't think we'd see full-on nudity, and we don't. It's right when she reaches to take off her bra that she remembers her deal with Grandma, that she won't turn tricks for a week. Rasconi complains, naturally, even going so far as to suggest he's leaving and not coming back. Dude, it's only a week. He's such a baby. But fitting the theme of this segment, the two hot people end up saying a Hail Mary while sitting on the side of the bed. People have cried out, "Oh God," on that bed many times before, I'm guessing, but not like this. And fine, whatever, fin, we're out. Fine, is that what it is in Italian? In French, it's always F-I-N. In this case, it was F-I-N-E. So, the cast. The two cast members. As I've said, this is numero uno for Sophia Loren on this channel. She won the Best Actress Oscar for De Sica's Two Women just a few years before this movie came out, and then they gave her an honorary Oscar about 30 years after that, which was in 1991. Loren worked a lot in the 50s and 60s and mostly made Italian films, but she's been in plenty of Hollywood movies over the years too. Even before she made this in Italy, she was in Houseboat with Cary Grant and El Cid with Charlton Heston. Grumpy Old Men also comes to mind, where she somehow ends up falling in love with Walter Matthau. Now that was a fantasy. We covered that first Grumpy Old Men last December, and we talked about her a little when we reviewed that one, although of course she's not actually in it. So even though this is the first time a Miss Loren film has ever been featured on this channel, and I think she's very good in this, and I respect her talent, and I obviously think she was a dream to look at, I don't know if we'll ever talk about her again. Of course, she's, as always, brassy and so very sexy here, but her being on the AFI's top 25 greatest actresses proves that they should have just left that thing open to any actor or actress who had ever worked. Not just use the limitations they imposed on themselves of you had to be dead, or you had to start making movies by or before 1950. That means Brando barely got on there. It's not even Loren's place on there I question as much as, say, Marlene Dietrich, and even the legendary Mary Pickford. Who talks about Mary Pickford anymore, great star though she was, and of course a studio founder with United Artists. So not allowing people like De Niro and Pacino and Nicholson and Streep and Denzel and Freeman and Hoffman and Jane Fonda to make the cut is bad enough, but the AFI's self-imposed restrictions meant that they put Loren on there, a woman who wasn't really even known as a Hollywood actress, not for really that much of her career, and it is the American Film Institute. So she's very good, and I say this with a lot of respect, but one of the 25 greatest actresses ever? No. Unlike Loren, Marcello Mastroianni has been in one of our episodes before today. That was Fellini's 8.5, which we covered last year. The man was dashing, handsome, and debonair. He could even pull off comedy. He's just a flat-out good actor, too, who was nominated for 3 Oscars. He was a huge star over in Italy for a reason. The resume includes things like being in De Sica's Marriage Italian Style with Loren the very next year. He was in La Dolce Vita, of course. I liked La Notte, which I saw last year. He was in Altman's Ready to Wear, or Pret-a-Porter, which Loren was in, too. They worked together so many times. And since I talked a little about the other actors as I went through the plot breakdown, and really it's just about these two people, I won't highlight them here. We'll move on to their director, Vittorio De Sica. We reviewed one of his great films several years ago, and it's actually one of the seminal motion pictures in the history of cinema, Bicycle Thieves. We tackled that back in December 2018. He also made Umberto D., the one about the man and his dog struggling to get by in Rome. De Sica was also the man behind Shoeshine, which I know the caustic film critic Pauline Kael loved. Despite his fame as a director, De Sica actually had, or has, whatever, about 160 acting credits versus only about 35 directing credits. And his only Oscar nomination ever was as Best Supporting Actor in the 1957 version of A Farewell to Arms. I believe Rock Hudson's the star of that one. The 3 different segments in YT&T have 3 sets of writers. Eduardo Di Filippo, and Isabella Quarantati are credited with the Adelina segment. Cesare Zavattini and Billa, that's the name, Billa, are credited with the Anna segment, and then Zavattini alone got credit for the Mara segment. Carlo Ponti produced this motion picture. He often produced Sophia's films. He was married to Loren in the late 50s, but they had gotten an annulment in 1962. Then they remarried in 1966 and were together for nearly 41 more years. Ponti died in 2007, although 90-year-old Sophia, who's 20 years younger than he was, is of course still kicking. She doesn't work that much anymore, but she makes movies occasionally. Ponti was also a producer on Contempt, which Bev and I reviewed back in February, and he had a hand in the great Antonioni flick, Blow Up. Carlo was nominated for Best Picture for David Lean's Dr. Zhivago. The guy did win an Oscar, although I guess technically Italy gets credit for that, just like with this movie, and that was for Fellini's La Strada. Giuseppe Rotunno shot the 2-3-5-1 picture, Adriana Novelli cut it, and Armando Travoli, with a J in there? Travajoli would be phonetic. Travajoli, probably. He composed the music. While Canopy's print isn't excellent, it is a handsome production, although I noticed a hair in the gate several times during the Part 2 sequence when she's driving around Milan. I assume they just had to live with it because reshooting all the driving stuff would probably be complicated and expensive. Still, that's why you hear people say on film sets, or at least you used to hear them say, "Check the gate." It was to see if there was any junk or hair that got in there and messed up the shot. And if there was, they'd usually redo it. The hair's a minor problem. I'm making a bigger deal of it than I probably should, but it always looks a little cheap when something like that is allowed to slide. But hair aside, to sum up the movie, I didn't laugh at the comedy, but I did smile, and I enjoyed YT&T. Maybe comedy isn't really De Sica's strong suit. He did drama so well in Bicycle Thieves and some other films, although this does feel like a movie that wants you to hug it more than asks you to bust your gut chuckling at it. As for the anthology element, it works okay. I actually would have preferred seeing a 90-minute movie about the first sequence because that's the one I like the best. Part 2 is easily the worst of the three, which is probably why it's so short. There is a lot of charm in Part 3, so they didn't limp home like they would have if they'd ended with the two lovers fighting over her car. And to get to watch Sophia Loren even nearly take all her clothes off in a sexy striptease in Part 3 was worth the price of admission all by itself, which was not a dime for me since I watched this movie free on Canopy. But all in all, I had fun with yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I just don't think I'll ever be checking it out again. Okay, maybe some scenes on YouTube so I can let my eyeballs drink in Miss Loren in her prime. In fact, confession, I watched the striptease scene again yesterday, although not today or tomorrow. And now I can say I have completed my quest to review at least one movie starring all 50 of the actors from the AFI's Top 50 Stars list. They had 25 men, 25 women on that list. Well, 27 men, really, because the Marx Brothers all shared one slot. I made it a mission to cover all 50 of those actors in some way or another. I couldn't leave it unfinished, so my goal has been reached. I need a new quest. Until I find one, I can say that was how I saw yesterday, today, and tomorrow. On Monday, Bev will be back after 3 weeks off. She missed the weeks I reviewed Batman, Little Caesar, and On the Town. On the 20th, though, she'll be across from me as we throw it back and forth about Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder. Let us know what you think of our chats or my solo gabs by firing off an email. The address is haveyoueverseenpodcast@gmail.com. We continue to look at posts and sometimes post our own thoughts on Elon's Twix, Twitter, X, whatever. My @ is @MovieFiend51 and Bev's is @BevEllisEllis. She uses that handle on Threads, too. All of our shows get posted on YouTube at some point the day they go up on the podcast apps. It's usually several hours later. The place to look for in your browser is @HYESEllis, or just go on YouTube and plop Have You Ever Seen into the search bar. Rate, review, like, subscribe, etc. on the tube or on your podcast app, or do both. And that could get us a wider audience if we had that kind of help from you. And that's that for today. Thanks for tuning in. See you on Monday when the two of us talk about Dial M for Murder. Meantime, I'm going to sit here and speculate about just how good the sex would have been between these two giants of Italian cinema, Sophia and Marcello. Or is it Marcello? And cut.